Hey, welcome back to Atlassian Europe, and we're going to have a little chat now about AI regulations, ethical use with my new friend Stan. How you doing?
Hey, Mike.
How
Great
are
to
you?
meet you. Thanks for having me online.
My pleasure. There are regulations all over the world, and you're the general counsel, and I'm sure you're keeping track of all this stuff. But
Mhm.
different countries, different regions seem to have different attitudes. So,
Yeah.
what's the current state of AI regulation? Because I know in the U.S. we're kind of maybe anti-regulation, and in Europe they're pretty far ahead. So,
Yeah.
how do I navigate all this stuff?
Yeah, it's a tricky world. Reminds me a little bit about where we were 8 years ago with GDPR and privacy. So some analogies and some things that we can talk about that are different. What I would say is that we here at Atlassian believe in smart regulation of AI. We believe that it's really a partnership between industry and lawmakers to, I think, create a regime that doesn't stifle growth, only encourages, the development of technology, new technologies like AI, but also creates guardrails that will produce AI that is technology we all want to live with. It creates more of a utopia rather than a dystopia. Specifically when it comes to the geographic differences that you've talked about, Mike, right now, Europe is definitely leading the pack with the EU AI Act. Atlassian signed on early to something called the EU Pact, which was sort of a lightweight regime that we comply with today. And it's something we can offer our customers here, say in Barcelona. And then what I would say is that we're building towards that high water mark, really sort of saying, okay, if the EU is leading the pack, let's go where the puck is moving. And then in the meantime, if the U.S. decides that it wants to move in a different direction, then I think we'll remain agile and we can pivot when it decides where it wants to go.
The U.S. is the United States of America, and the various states have different attitudes towards AI as well. We'll see
Correct.
things in California and New York that you might not
Colorado.
see in
Yep.
Texas.
Yep.
Is there some sort of baseline standard that I can get to if I'm using AI that might be applicable to a broad number of these states and countries?
Yeah, it's a great question. What I would say is that in the U.S., there's actually a government standard. It's called NIST. And that's something that if you want to sell technology to the U.S. government, you have to go through that checklist. And so for us, that's sort of been the closest industry proxy. There's also some other industry standards that our customers are asking for in the United States and elsewhere. It's an ISO standard that's specific to AI. And so that's something that we're also having our roadmap to build towards. But as far as anything that is necessarily required, that is a much more of a matrixed approach. And so what we're trying to do is really build for scale, since we have customers globally, rather than try and get too specific, build again towards that high watermark that we see, sort of the industry moving towards. But this conversation in a couple of years could be very different, Mike.
And there are other regulations that still apply. Well, so say HIPAA and health.
Oh, yeah.
If I have an AI agent, it still has to comply with the HIPAA regulations, and there's all kinds of other regulations.
Yep.
So, do those need to be tweaked, or can they just be applied as is to AI agents, and we'll just treat them like any other end user?
Yeah. So not only are there new laws, there's the existing laws that maybe have been around for many decades, privacy laws, data security laws, all like you just mentioned. And so absolutely those, I think, are the laws today. And yes, they can apply to use cases specific to AI. My sense is that they will also need to evolve, that lawmakers will need to keep up with the development of technology and make sure that those are rightly, adjusted and applicable to new use cases. So all to say that this is something that takes a full legal team like mine to really stay out ahead of and make sure that not only are we complying, but we're also leading and influencing. And for example, we recently sent a team to Brussels here in Europe to help influence the evolution of the law, because again, this has to be this partnership between industry and lawmakers.
Do you get the sense that the lawmakers are AI literate at this point, or or is that still very much a work in progress?
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of them are not technologists by trade. Some of them are, and they have a series and a bench of experts that they rely on. But I think that's the opportunity that we feel at Atlassian, and being tech lawyers on my team, we really can help bridge the two sides, technology and law, and really, I think, help influence the outcome. So I've been very pleased in talking to lawmakers and their ability to be fast learners, to be able to understand new areas of technology and be open to curiosity and learning.
Yeah. Are you also working with other vendor partners who are also have similar interest in AI regulations? I mean, can the industry kind of speak with one voice, or is that always going to be 100 different voices?
Yeah. So for me, a simple, I would say, sort of model to look at within AI specifically are the fundamental LLM providers. So your, sort of Anthropic, your OpenAI, your Gemini, and then you also have the deployers, which is more where Atlassian is, right? We're taking the LLMs from the developers, given all the, incredible compute infrastructure that it takes to stand up an LLM. And so maybe I wouldn't say there's a schism or a divide, but I feel like when it comes to compliance and regulation, the laws today are looking a little bit more closely at the fundamental LLM providers, saying, do they have a kill switch? Are there things that are more consequential when you're actually developing the model than, say, Atlassian that's deploying the model for the end user? And so that's maybe where I see a little bit of the industry sort of, again, not a schism, but just sort of two different industry camps, and sort of how they're at least looking at compliance, and also what's the lift in actually standing up a regime that can comply.
Last time I checked, I don't think you can indict an AI agent. So we're still responsible for what happens with this AI thing. But I don't know, do people really get that? I think, or are they going to sit around and say, well, the AI did it, it's not my fault?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's absolutely a partnership between humans and AI. And at the end of the day, the humans have to be responsible for the actions that are taken. I do think it will be interesting to see, maybe as some litigation works its way through the courts, where the liability truly lies for an agent's behavior. Was it the creator of the agent? Was it the user who gave the command? I think it's still too soon to tell. But at the end of the day, this really comes down to trust. And the only way that AI is really going to be successful and is going to be something that we want to use and really fulfill, I think, the full capability and the full potential of AI will be if it is transparent. We know we're talking to AI, we're not talking to a human. Do we understand how the models were trained, how the biases were either accounted for or not accounted for? All of that, I think, is going to be super, super important. And that's something that we here at Atlassian take very seriously. You probably know we have a company value of open company, no bullshit. And so that transparency comes very naturally to us.
So you guys have been using AI agents within your own practice, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. How are you using these things and what surprised you?
Yeah, I like to think, Mike, that we have the most innovative legal team in any company out there. We are not afraid to embrace new technology. We're curious. We like to experiment. We work for a company that is agile. And so very much that is in keeping with our legal brand as well. We have identified two, we call them hero use cases for AI. They're both related to Rovo, the Atlassian product. And so the first one is about our service management. So we have a whole bunch of stakeholders internally within Atlassian who reach out to legal with questions. Rather than get a whole bunch of emails and Slacks, what we do is we funnel them in through what we call the legal one front door. So we use Jira Service Management as that front door portal, with Rovo powering all of the first line questions. So you might have a question and say, I want to hire this new employee in this geo. I want to make some changes to the employment agreement. Where should I go? Rather than have to have a human go in there and sort of point you, oh, cool, here's the template and here's the page that tells you, what changes are acceptable and which ones are not. Rovo can actually do the first line of defense on that. Yes, you need a human behind the scenes, giving them the playbook, giving them, doing the quality assurance to make sure that they're pointing, the knowledge seeker in the right direction. But that's a really great example of how we can do more efficiency and more throughput, and not necessarily, sort of have a human have to do that first pass. The second hero use case that we have using AI in the legal team at Atlassian is around knowledge extraction. So think about, in the old days, you bought a company and they had a bunch of contracts and you had to hire a team of lawyers to go in and read those contracts. What are we buying? Vendor contracts, employment contracts, sales contracts, maybe some leases. Well, rather than pay a law firm or have a team of, 5 people, 10 people having to pore over these photocopies, you can feed those PDFs into Rovo. Rovo will extract a summary, a high-level accurate summary of all those documents and give you a readout, say in a Confluence page, that you can then sort and go through and sort of say, well, here's the ones that are highest risk. Here are the ones that we don't care about. Let those go through. That's all the power of Rovo. And so those are the two things that I'm really excited about, that we've said, though, if we can focus on those and standing those up with my legal team, we can then focus on the more high value things that are really attorney work.
Mm-hmm. Are you at all worried that AI is going to replace lawyers at some point?
It's been I've had some friends reach out to me and ask me about that. I think there's always going to be a need for judgment. That's the one thing that I think the legal craft needs humans to do, and that AI cannot replace. Is that there's always going to be these, I think, very discrete edge cases that are going to require really understanding the totality of facts, precedent, being able to see shades of gray. And I think maybe AI can get us 50, 60, 70% of the way there, but it's that last 30% that takes human judgment, human discretion, a lot of, I think, just experience that perhaps AI cannot simulate. So maybe the legal craft evolves, but I don't think it ever replaces us.
Mm-hmm. Can we accelerate the legal process? I think if you ask most people who've ever been involved in the legal process, the one impression they got it takes a long time.
Yep.
Can we reduce this down to something that's more manageable?
Absolutely. I think we can go much faster. And I think, the business can run that much more efficiently with AI helping lawyers. And part of what I was just describing of getting a box of 600 pages of photocopies that used to take, a team of 10 people 24 hours overnight, pulling an all-nighter in a conference room to read, you can feed that into Rovo and you probably can get the readout in about 20 minutes, right? And just think about that. And there were some great examples in the keynote yesterday from Rajiv around software coding. Same thing. What used to take code review 3 days and a team of developers, I think you can do that now in a couple minutes. So it's just going to free us up to do better things with our time. That's where I think the unlock is.
One more question related to that.
Yeah.
So when you take the bar exam, you're supposed to memorize all the stuff.
Yeah.
Do I really need to memorize all that stuff if I have AI agents going forward?
Good question. I feel like that comes back down to the calculator of back in the, we used to have to learn algebra, but now we have, calculators and computers to do that for us. I think that there probably still will be some benefit in testing for knowledge and standardized testing. It's just going to have to evolve. And maybe the things that we're testing for today are not the things we should be testing for in the future. Maybe the test will be on how does the legal craft use AI? That could be more of a skills-based test.
There you go.
Something to think about.
All right, folks, you heard it here. AI, use it responsibly, but it can do great things. Hey, buddy, thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.
Thanks for a great conversation.
And we'll be back in a minute.